Hi guys, we are again here for our second session related to onboarding on the Randstad project. And before continuing with our agenda, do you have any questions that you have for me and I could answer?
Currently not. I spent some time checking the production website, what was it? Randstad Co UK. Made an account and got an overview of how things work there. About the diagram, it's quite large, but hopefully, as you said, we'll take a more detailed look on it, so things will get clearer, hopefully.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, for the moment.
Okay. You should have received emails from Randstad. We have requested emails to be created for you. For the sake of the recording, as we are working on Randstad project, we have Randstad emails. This means that you have your own email and you have the Randstad one. You get invites for meetings in the Randstad email. You could make sync between the calendars, so your meetings are always in sync and you're not missing any invites. And we need to have Randstad emails because Randstad are a big company and this is how they operate. Based on those emails, you will be given access to Jira, Confluence, GitLab in this case, and also a fellow colleague will request for you creation of access for AWS as well. We will need actually public SSH keys. I will ping you in the chat after that, and based on those keys, you receive access to the source code. Without any further ado, I will continue because we have an agenda for today as well. The first thing that I want to do is yes.
Sorry, but I think I'm not receiving any email from Randstad.
Yeah, check the spam folder, and after the call, we will align. Because Tuyan received it, there might be a delay because it's a person from Randstad who is doing this, so it's not automated, and let's see after the call.
Okay.
Currently, our client uses their own GitLab instance. It's hosted in this location. In that GitLab instance, we have a folder which is specifically for our project. So you see that we have RXP, and then we have a subgroup which is subgroup RXP Web. In that subgroup of RXP Web, we have a separation of the repositories. You see that we have some country names. This is part of the time when we were making migrations. So you see a lot of countries and different operating brands. And also in this subgroup and projects, we have some which are like API. This is an API level that is currently existing in the project. What are the main repositories that you should be aware of? Well, the first one is called Vuex platform. Vuex platform, this is where Drupal lives. You see that this is part of the core folder. So if you open the core folder, you see the rest of the stuff that is marked as core. So the Vuex platform is part of the core, and the Vuex platform is where Drupal lives. Don't mistake microsites platform with Vuex platform. Microsites was one project that was initiated by Randstad and then frozen. Probably one day it will be returned back to life. So you're interested in Vuex platform. Vuex platform consists of Drupal instance. You have all the code. It's Drupal multi-site. We have config splits for all the countries that you have in there. Also, we have doc root modules and custom modules which are built. And also, when it comes how this is built from front-end perspective in teams, custom, we have several teams. You see the Vuex one. The Vuex team is actually the blue one that you could see if you open any of the sites. Then we have admin team. This is for the admin area of the website. And then we have Spherion and Tempo team. What does it mean for Spherion? Spherion is one of the brands that Randstad operate with. And you see that if you compare Spherion team with, for example, the Boo X1, one of them is mainly orange, and the other one is Boo. The default team is the Boo one. This is a specific brand that has some specific functionalities and different structure. Another brand that is specific, it's Tempo team. So if I open, for example, Tempo team Belgium as a website, you will see that in here we have a light blue team, which is different than the regular one. So from front-end perspective, that's why we have these three teams inside the platform. How you could operate the platform? We have README about the platform. You will receive a fresh database dump. So you could ping me so I could provide you with one. And then we have an option to init site. So this is how you actually init. You clone it, clone the repository, you run composer install, and then you run fin init site, providing the opco. The opco codes are like UK, Belgium, and etc. And you provide the DB dump. This will set up everything for you. You will end up having a local domain and local instance, and you will be able to actually SSH if you need it, and etc. So everything that you need for the platform from CMS point of view to be functional is part of this platform repository. Then what else do we have in this platform folder? We have awards. Awards, this is an application that is used for sending job awards. So what does it mean, job award? If I search for any jobs in here, I could provide a filter, and based on the filter that I have provided, I could go and subscribe for a job award. So this means that if I say like this, and I could select frequency and give my consent, then I am added to a list, and daily we have a cron that is being executed, and based on that cron, I receive emails that look like this. So this is from Randstad Germany, but you see that it says we have some jobs for you. You see the name of the jobs, and I could click on any of them. And also I have an option to actually decide whether I want to remove my subscriptions or no. So this is what the awards app is doing. I won't go into details, but it's good that you have heard of it. And we are sending the job awards. The awards are sent using simple email service. In one of the later sessions, I will go into more details about the actual app. The next app that we have in here, it's called Articles. So Articles app, the Articles app is the one that you see responsible for listing articles. This one. This is the Articles app. And inside the Articles app, this is React application. So if you go to search config, you see that we have some split again by operational countries. The split is mainly related to if there are some environment variables and the client routes. It's obvious that the client routes are different because in different countries, the app lives in a different URL. And if the app is multilingual, we again support it. You see in this example with Belgium, we have the Dutch routes. Then we have the English routes and also the French ones as well. So this React application is reading the data from, let me open the diagram because it will be better. Here, this Articles app is reading the information from Elasticsearch because the CMS is indexing data in Elastic. So where is this in the diagram? Let me check how I could see it. So we have, in this case, my Randstad search app. Have the load balancer, and this is the Elasticsearch, this one. So the Articles app is reading data from Elastic, but the CMS, which is this one, is indexing the data into the Elastic. the next application that we have, it's called branch locator. Branch locator, again, it's React application. We have a README, how you could utilize it. Usually it's just yarn and you provide the opcode code and it starts. We have description of everything that you will need in the README. And it's similar to the rest of the apps. Again, we have config folder. In the config folder, we have the configuration. If you open the configuration, we have split by environments, and also if there are some specific rules, they are listed in here. Also, something that I didn't touch base on the other app, but it's available for all of the apps, the React applications, we have an option to override components. Because the different operational countries have different requirements. So that's why in the client side, when it goes to components, in some of the components, we have overrides. And these overrides are actually a specific functionality that is valid only for a certain country or several countries that have it. And how does it look like on the front end? So if I go to our offices, this is the branch locator list. So we have the repository here. And again, this works in a way that CMS indexes data in Elasticsearch and branch locator is reading it from Elasticsearch in order to render this list. I won't go into many details. After that, I will have a session and go up per app. But the main thing that you need to remember is that we have specific overrides, we have specific configs, and these could be seen from the config folder, and then picking any of the operational countries, you could see everything that's actually overridden, including components. For example, for tempo team, we have specific components which are related to header, view switcher, the map, branch list item, and branch pin item, and the footer. You see it's a lot of components, but this is expected because tempo team has a totally different design from the rest. That's one of the other reasons why it's different. The next thing that we have in the list, it's called chat app. We have a chat application. This chat application is really interesting. It was requested to be added by us in relation of search for Amazon jobs. So usually how it started, Randstad are working with Amazon, and Amazon were planning to open a new office, and they were searching for several thousand people, and Randstad created a custom chat which is initiated on different pages. I'm searching for a page where I could show you the chat. Probably there's a chance that I won't be able to show it because it's missing, but let's see. In here we have a story, and yes, nice. And we have a link. Let's see. This is Amazon landing pages. It's behavior, and then we have one other. So any of these, I should have the option to see the chat if they haven't disabled it, because there's a chance that they disabled the chat for now. Let's see in the story, do we have a screenshot how it looks like? It's like this. So you see Amazon/jobs. Let's see for, if I say Randstad.de Amazon jobs. Randstad.de Amazon jobs, and then the other one is North Rhine-Westphalen. North Rhine-Westphalen. And did they remove that? Bewerber Unternehmensprofil. So it's Bewerber Unternehmensprofil. Okay, it's in here, and then I need to search for Amazon, or they remove that. Yeah, there's a chance that they have disabled this. Let's see, Unternehmens profile, and then if I try to access Amazon, yeah, you see, there's a redirect. And they remove the chat for now. So the idea is that in the chat, you see a pop-up. Let me search for it so I could show you as how it looks like. It looks like this. So you see there is an option. It says virtual assistant, and it's a pop-up chat. And this chat you set in the CMS where you want this to be visible. And then when you're on a certain page, it will init the chat and show it for you. And actually, Randstad developed this with Google. So from who is actually setting up the chat, it's on business side. They are making different conversations. For us as RxP Web, our job is to call an endpoint and say, please init the conversation. The endpoint returns to us some response, and we render it for the front end. We are not actually building the whole conversation. We are just like a proxy passing the data. That's what you need to remember about that chat. It's not complex for us. The next thing that we have on the list, it's called app form. Okay, this is interesting thing. Again, we have forms app. So in cases where we have static version, like these static pages, sometimes we need to have forms. And as this is static HTML, those forms had to actually, you see, call something. And in this case, I'm being recognized by Google, so I need to verify that I'm not a bot. But this form is working with dynamic validation. How is this being performed? When I click submit, if you check in the network tab, it goes to API form submit. And in the request, we pass all the data. We actually pass some reference for the actual form. The main point is that in here, we have an application. This is Node.js application. It's not React. So if you open API form and say health, and this is a health status, and this forms app is responsible for all the forms which are on static pages, not forms which are part of another apps, but forms which are on static pages like this. So each editor could add forms in Drupal. Then these forms are actually synced as configuration to Dynamo, and this app is making sure that it works. I won't go into more details, but if you open the forms app as a code, you see again the similar structure as the others. So we have source. In the config folder, you see the different opcos and their configuration. And if you open any of them, you see any callbacks if we need any overrides. And that's valid for all the operational countries. This app has been rewritten probably 1 year ago or more, but it's really easy to work with because it's backend only application. We don't have a front-end layer. From front-end perspective, in the CMS, in Drupal, we have JavaScript file, which is actually responsible for fetching the information here and calling the endpoint. Next up in the list, it's called Buex app jobs. This is one of the main apps. Without this, Randstad websites won't operate. So how it works, this is the jobs app. You see we have a lot of different filters and etc. So the jobs app structure is similar like articles, branch locator apps. And we have, again, README, how it works, what you need to have to install it. And then inside source folder, in the configuration, we have different operational countries. And if you open any of the operational countries, you see the environment variables. And also there are overrides. So we have client rules, which are specific again per different country. And also we have component configs, which shows different versions of a certain components. For example, let's go to job apply main. You see we have job apply and then we have job apply main. So how do I find it? I go to source, client, components, and then I'm searching for job apply. And then it was called job apply main. And you see all the overrides. So for these countries here, these components is slightly different. And inside the component, you see that we tried to make it as simple as possible, so it doesn't have that many logic. That was the idea. By the way, all these apps also, we have the client part, and then we have the server part. In the server part, we have routes. So any of the routes that you could see are here. We have the API level with all the API calls that you could imagine. And there's one thing that's used, get callback. It's not the most optimal thing, but get callback is actually used to call any other callbacks that you might need. How you could find out how this works? Well, if I am on the jobs app, currently I'm on the jobs app because I'm searching jobs, I'm seeing job items being listed. If I go to inspect and then network, I have marked that I'm interested in seeing only XHR requests. And then if I apply a certain filter, you see several requests were invoked. Some of them are analytics, so it's things that it's really important for the client. But one of them is like this Randstad UK search results. And it's actually calling API/search/search results. And if I go into the request, I could see what we are passing. So we know the current language, we know what kind of parameters, where we are, and also we are performing a search. And based on these params, which is still not passing also the location data, it's giving us a response. And in the response, you see that we have a search results object, etc. So if I go again and check what I'm calling API search results. So this means that if I go to the app and go to API, then I should have search results. And this is the code that's actually returning the response. It's similar how you could debug the app. So again, I clicked and I have some search results that are being returned, etc. And based on those search results, I'm actually getting more and more information. This is what is being invoked. This is how you usually debug. It's valid for the rest of the apps. So if I open, for example, branch locator that we were checking before, again, if I want to find out what's being called, one of the easiest ways simply when you search for something, you see in here, it's calling API branches get callback. In this case, this is the get callback approach that I told you. And inside the callback, we are stating which callback we want to be executed. So this is how you check inside your source, server, callbacks, and that's how I find out what is being executed. And this is for the RxP Classic apps. So again, we have configurations. For each opcode, we might have overrides related to certain components, pages, and etc. And then we could have even overrides related to the backend part, which might be either callback or something else, like an API handler. The next app that we have on the list, it's called Sitemap. This is again interesting app. What's the idea? I guess by the name of it, you already guess. Randstad are a big website, and this big website, they need to have a really good sitemap. So they have robots.txt that's being carried by their SEO expert. And inside the robots.txt, you could see where is the XML index sitemap. And if you open any of the sitemaps, you see that they have a lot of sitemaps. So they have sitemap for static content, for images, but also they have sitemap for offices. And then it becomes interesting because they have sitemaps for job details and for some of the most famous searches. So we have different job listings. And then we have sitemaps based on a certain specialism that's important for them. And when it comes to the static version, you see that this is an enormous sitemap that's being generated. But when it comes to the main ones, like this is being handled by default Drupal behavior, because Drupal is really good at building sitemaps, and it's only pages, which is good. But when it comes to the dynamic parts, in this case apps, and more specific when it comes to jobs, we have a specific application that is actually generating those sitemaps, and it's storing them in S3 bucket. The idea is that before, in the beginning, these were generated on the fly. So it was like you tried to access the sitemap. If the sitemap was available, it was being returned to you. If it wasn't, the first time it was slow because it was being generated, and then it has been cached. But this is not working for opcos which have, let's say, more than 100,000 jobs. And we do have such opcos. So it's not a good idea to generate on the fly. That's why we have this application, which is generating the sitemap in a background process, storing it in an S3 bucket, and then when you try to surf any of these, it's fetching whether to show you the latest one or something else. That's the idea of this app. Again, it's similar structure. We have configs. In the configurations, you have some overrides. Mostly, we don't have any changes between operational countries because these are only sitemap builders. And then we have all the different sitemaps we might need. So like details, and we have listing, and we have XML, and etc. What you need to remember is that we have a specific place to generate sitemaps for jobs. And this is the app. The next thing that we have on the list, it's called Buex app My Randstad. This is the place for profile. So My Randstad, when you could register, log in, or actually manipulate the data in your profile. This is React application, similar to the rest. So you run yarn, and you have opco label as environment variable. You have source, and in the config folder, you have all the different opcos. And based on the opco, you have overrides on components. You have specific URLs as well, which is again normal because my Randstad in different languages is different. And in the components, you could see the different overrides. So again, the app has front-end part, which is inside client folder. We have pages, and also we have components. In the components, if you open any of the components, and if there are overrides, you could see them. Let's see which one could have overrides. Let's see, not personal. Dashboard, probably the dashboard. Dashboard, was it job awards? Yeah, this one. Yeah, you see we have one override for France. And again, these components are not big. We also have pages. The pages are limited amount because it's expected to have not so many pages, especially when you're in the locked-in state. There is only one extra specific about this app. If you remember when we discussed about job awards, when I click on this page, I'm not logged in, but I could manipulate my job awards. This page itself, it's also served by my Randstad app. And you need to remember that the My Randstad app and the Jobs app are the main apps, because if you could not search for a job and not apply for a job, you have an issue. That's how our clients think. It's important to have everything else functional, but these two apps are really, really important. So if we are working on them, we should be really careful what we are doing. Okay, so we went quickly through My Randstad. The next thing on the list is called Pulse app. We have a functionality in the CMS where you could see different polls. To be honest, I don't know an opco that is currently actively using this, but it's like a pop-up here on the right side, and it's asking you a question, then it's storing the details. The idea of this poll app is we have dynamic question, and we need to store the details. And as this is static HTML, that's why we have an application. It's like checking do we have the POE on a certain page, making call to an endpoint. If we have a POE, then it's showing the pop-up when you have accepted the cookies. If you haven't accepted cookies, we are not showing anything. It's really simple application, but it's different when you compare it to the Forms app. And an important note here for Inyan, we know that in Drupal we have web form module and also we have POE modules, but as this is decoupled architecture with static generation, the web form module is heavily customized, so we have overrides on top of it, and the post module is the same. So we are not using directly the modules that we have in Drupal, because in Drupal, those modules actually accept submissions on Drupal side. And in this case, we are not exposing at any cost the CMS. So this is what the public part see, the end users, and you see that the end users have no connection to the CMS, and this should remain the same. So the end user should not know, should not be able to call CMS. Next up on the list, it's called Salary Checker. This is relatively new app. What's the purpose of the Salary Checker? You see, I have been making some hotfixes. The Salary Checker app is used for, let's find out the URL. So it's /salary in this case. Salary Checker app, Randstad, New Zealand, and then open salary. Let's see, waiting for it, yes. This is a specific app. Its own purpose is if you search for a certain job, and then when you provide the location, we are calling an endpoint, and based on that endpoint, we receive data which is shown for the end user. And I know that this is kind of slow, but it depends on the APIs that the client provided for us. That's why we could not manipulate them. And you see, I provided a substitute teacher, set what's the area, in this case, Wellington, and I have received that my average salary is this per year. That's the sole purpose of the app. The Salary Checker app, again, follows the same structure. It's a React application, so you have source, config. In the config, you have different operational countries, and if there are any overrides, they could be seen. Currently, as this app is pretty straightforward, we don't expect to have many overrides. And by the way, this is something extremely important. You could see that we are close to the middle of the list, and still we have other apps. And one of the things we had as a challenge was actually making sure that we could support so many overrides. So for RxP Classic, we are where we are, and the business also understood that having different overrides per different countries, so this means different functionality, is not a good idea because you are not unifying your business. That's why they started RxP Talent Foundation. And in Talent Foundation, we don't have overrides. And if you're working on any of the apps related to RxP Classic that I'm currently showing, if tasks comes to you to make an additional override, the request here is first align this with your technical lead and then with the product owner. Now we are trying to avoid making any new overrides because this is making the support of the platform really hard. And our clients are understanding that, and they are supporting us in this journey not to actually add more and more on the plate. So this is really good because they understood it, and currently they are working with us towards removing the overrides. Salary Checker app. Next thing is BHAT. This is only for the QA part, but it's worth to mention because it's important. We have extremely good coverage of BHAT tests. So actually, we are testing almost everything when it comes to the flows. This includes creation of content in Drupal, static generation, job applying, account creations, and as we have a really big system, this is really important. Tony Kolev here, he is the lead of BHAT. So if there's a QA who needs to write any new tests, this should be added in here. You could see the different features that have been created. You could see different profiles. And in those profiles, you see different options and what we are currently checking. Big hat tests are running daily. So each morning, our colleagues from the QA department are checking the results of the big hat tests, and if there are any regressions, this is being discussed on stand-ups, etc. And our aim is to remove any regressions. So daily, we are checking the big hat test results on dev, and before release, we are also checking the big hat tests on PPR, which is pre-production environment, making sure that what is going to be released is not breaking the platform, because we have a lot of operational countries and we don't want to deploy something that will break the platform. And you could imagine that you could not check this manually. I will talk more about it after that, but what you need to know is that that's why we have this big hat repository, and we have a lot of steps written by our colleagues. The next repository that we have in this case, it's called Lambda Edge. Okay, Lambda Edge. What is Lambda Edge? Lambda Edge functions are specifics when it comes to the Amazon Web Services. The Lambda Edge functions look like this. The sole purpose of them is if you, as an end user, try to access something. Usually, if you have CloudFront, you could manipulate as developer the viewer request. So currently the flow is, I try to access something. First, it's executed viewer request. Then I hit CloudFront, and then it's called origin request, because the origin is the what I need to receive as an end result. And let's say we don't have any cache on CloudFront, so I try to open a certain page. I will first make a viewer request, then CloudFront will see that it's not cached, and then CloudFront will request the actual resource. Then it will be our origin request. The actual resource will return an origin response, and then this will return viewer response to the end user. It's really good because you could manipulate this in different levels. And currently, this is being attached as behavior in AWS. So I will just show you how it looks like, because this is extremely specific, and I'm sure that we will have to discuss this several times. It's good for you just to have it in your mind how it works. So currently, I'm opening the CloudFront distributions, and I will pick any distribution. Let's see which one. This one. This is Portugal, static PPR. Then in behaviors, we have a list of the different routes. So you see that a certain route goes to the apps. This is how it distinguishes them. By the way, this is part of in here of the diagram when we hit CloudFront and the Lambda Edge, this one. And in any of these routes, let's say I open the default one and go to edit. You see that we have specific cookies which are whitelisted. We have a specific cache policy, etc. And here we have a configuration about viewer request, viewer response, and origin response. Why this is important? If I go to the code and open the Lambda Edge core version, we have this actual file, and in the viewer request, you see we have basic authentication check if you are trying to access non-production domains, and also we have some redirects. So if there are any custom redirects which could not be handled by Drupal, and as we have static, these redirects live in this viewer request file. Except for the viewer request, we also have viewer response. In the viewer response file, we are actually adding some cookies which we need, and those cookies are widely used. So it's like tracking ID. Also, we have user session ID if we need it, etc. And we have some protections that we are making as a check. And then we have the origin request if we need to adjust something, and the origin response as well. In the origin response, currently, we do have some S3 stuff. And what's the idea of this S3 stuff? This is about the 404 page. Because if you try to open, I'll show you, any page. Let's see, I go to inspect, then to network, and I open a random page. In that random page, it's actually making a request here, and I get 404. It says not found, and it's normal to say not found, but what it's making is making CloudFront check, and then it's trying to read the file from S3 because this is the static version, and S3 is actually returning 403, not 404. And that's why in this code, we are actually checking what is coming as a response, and then based on the response, we are making adjustments. This is the one you see. If it's 403, and if the host was the S3 website, the static version, then make sure that the response status here is 404, not 403. I know that you might be confused by this. Don't worry, it's normal, but it's something that you need to have an idea that sometimes we do have redirects which are on close to infra level. Then the next thing that we have in this case, it's client logo. Client logo, it's an endpoint, it's a Lambda function, which allows a user to show different logos. So if I go to Randstad Belgium in this case, search for list of items, and this logo here, probably it's loaded by this Lambda function. How do I know that it's loaded by this Lambda H function, Lambda function, not Lambda H function? You see it's calling an endpoint, and if I open the endpoint here, I see the logo, and this endpoint is receiving opco label and client ID. And the whole purpose of this endpoint is actually reading data from the site and returning the logo as an ID. The idea is that when you're on a listing page, you could not simply check for each one, because that it will take you a lot of time. That's why we're adding this as a lazy vault. The lazy vault is trying to load a resource. The resource is actually receiving a client ID, and the Lambda function is returning the logo for you, or it's returning an empty PNG with one-on-one as a size. And this way we're having a good performance, and also we're loading the dynamic part. The job index, this is regarding indexation of jobs. As you remember, we said that there is one thing called DOVA, and the idea is that this app is responsible for indexing jobs from DOVA. In here, again, we have opcos, we have different configurations, and based on the configurations, usually we say which country and what source IDs, etc. What you need to remember is we have a specific repository for indexing jobs. This is running on a certain time period, 5 minutes or 15 minutes every day on DTA environment, which is dev test and acceptance. This is running once per day. So this is how we index jobs. Next thing is Leap email. We have a library for sending emails. This is used only by the Forms app. It's only for your convenience to know it. In there we have templates, and these templates might differ. It's using PUC. Soon this will be refactored, but it's good for you that you have heard of them. Same with HubSpot. HubSpot is a different service used widely by Randstad. Currently, Randstad use HubSpot for submitting data, and then when submitting data in HubSpot, they're making different checks, like how many users were created accounts, etc., how many form submissions were made. In HubSpot, you could have contacts, etc. So that's the sole purpose of this library, is just to unify how data is sent. The library for the H is just preparing some how to run the tests, so don't need to test any of it. We have a specific library related to logging. That's a big part of the project, as you could imagine. Each of the apps are actually using a reference to this logger library. And the idea is that currently Randstad are using not only Amazon Web Services, but also each of the logs are sent to a service that's called Splunk. So our clients are using Splunk, and logs are stored in Splunk, and in Splunk you could make different dashboards and search for them. This is only for informational purpose. You don't need to make any adjustment to it. Then we have Leap React components. So we have a library with React components. Currently, we have two versions of this library. One of them is the normal one, which is used in RxP Classic, and then we have a one that's used for RxP Talent Foundation. So for front-end guys, this is where we have those common components The idea is that in this place, we reuse only them. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. And with Talent Foundation, this React Components library there's a rule. If you are working in Talent Foundation and you are working in a new app, you are using this library. So we are trying to avoid having any customization of the components because it makes our life easier to have everything in one place, so it will look the same everywhere. LibScripts. This is another repository. The idea of this LibScripts repository is that when you try to access a website, let's say I open this home page, go to Network tab, and here I search for scripts. You see that several scripts are loaded for me. The idea of LibScripts is that we have, again, different operational countries. In the operational countries, we have a split, and if you check them, we have different files which are being loaded for us. The reason for LibScripts is that we have some dynamic parts, whether you're logged in or not. This is being updated, and that's where LibScripts helped us. So if you open my Randstad client, you see that this is vanilla.js file that's actually calling an endpoint and updating the header for you. Another thing important for LibScripts is related to the global data layer. As you could imagine, Randstad need to know how the user behaves. And currently, they do this through several stuff. One of them is we have Google Tag Manager, which is injecting their own code. But also, we have client-side and server-side data tracking. And this is done via data layer. And in this data layer, we are actually adding different events. And if you open the global data layer file, you see that we're preparing objects in here. And also we have listeners for some forms or any other specific events which are outside the apps. So inside each of the apps, we have data layer, but also for the static version or some general events, this lives in this file. So the idea of LibScripts is have in one place logic, which is common between not only the static version, but it's also required for the apps as well. And this is valid for RxP Classic. Second page. In the second page, we have wrapper components. The idea of this was we have simple components, we have more complex components. So the wrapper components part was just encapsulating and adding more features. Microsites platform, Randstad used to have a microsites platform. This is not currently in use. So these two, it was client and backend, not in use. The Buex platform is where the Drupal lives. I started with it. And then in here, we have Orbit and the Talent Foundation apps. So you see that the Talent Foundation apps are 3 different apps. Orbit is the design library. If you remember from our last session, we are using Orbit. If you open Randstad Design, you see the latest Orbit stuff. You see design patterns, you see components, you see everything that you might need. And in this Orbit repository, we do have some overrides. And these are actually overrides that was requested by the clients, so we could add them. And there should be a procedure of moving those overrides to the Orbit repository, to the source. Sadly, this is not yet finished. That's why we have to still keep our overrides in here. And that's so purpose of this repository is to have one place where you actually add overrides. It generates the files, and then each of the apps read from this repository. And the Talent Foundation stuff. And the Talent Foundation stuff is actually using Next.js. So these are the new apps. The new apps doesn't have overrides. This is what you need to remember. And the new apps are using Next.js. One of the other main rules that we have is that we don't have backend in the new apps. The new apps are only client-side apps. The backend services are being distributed to us by the client. In the old apps, we were the ones that were making those backend services. And that's why in the old apps, some of the data is stored at our side. In the new apps, we don't store any data at our side. Everything is stored at Randstad side. And I know that this is a big list, so I guess you're confused. But it was important just to make sure we go through all the repositories. And then I will open only one extra thing, which is called releaseful. We have several branches that we are using. We have dev branch, test branch, PPR, and production. How do we work? Dev and test are dev branches where all the development stuff could be found, where the QA happens. Test branches where the UAT is done by our clients. PPR branch is pre-production branch. This is a stable branch. And production branch is what is visible for the end clients. And in here you see how it works. But the idea is that when you start a new feature, you start working from PPR, because in PPR we have stable working code that's confirmed to be working because we have tests, etc. So when you start from PPR, you create a feature branch. When you are done with your work as a developer, you create 3 pull requests, one to dev, one to test, and one to PPR. Once your direct manager, the technical lead, tests and sees your code, and if he is happy, he or she, changes will be merged to dev. Once changes are merged to dev, your story will go to QA. Once the QA says, okay, I'm happy, everything is okay, your story will be merged to test and sent to the client for UAT. If the QA is not happy and there are some bugs, your fixes are added to the feature branch, inside the feature branch. That's why everything that you have written as code for this feature, it's one branch. And then when the UAT is done, the client says, I'm happy, this is being pushed to PPR. Bi-weekly, what we are doing, we are moving PPR to production, and this is how we are making a deploy for the whole platform. Because we are actually deploying everything for all opcos across the world. And that's why, by following this approach, we are making sure that we are deploying only working and confirmed features. We have 1 minute. What we will do is send you information about the release flow and the account setup that I would like you to review. And then I will send you something else, which is a knowledge transfer folder. The idea of this knowledge transfer folder is we have different videos for almost every part that I touched based on. It's a lot of videos, so you could start watching them. And based on those videos, you get a wider knowledge about the platform. In our next session, I will go into more details about the 2 main apps. But during that time, I would like from you to touch base and see, for example, this one about the architecture stuff. And then we have some core new features and some general overrides. So I will send you a couple of links for you to check before our next session tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.